Hi, and welcome to episode number 47 of the weekly Google Cloud Platform podcast. I am Francesc, and I'm here with my colleague Mark Mandel. Hey Mark, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Francesc. How are you doing? We're in a slightly different room today.
Yeah, I think people will be able to hear a little bit of the echo, unless you do an amazing job with editing.
That's unlikely.
Yeah, so probably you're hearing some echo. That is because, someone broke the door in our studio, so we cannot enter.
Yep.
Things happen.
That's fine.
Anyway, so today we're going to be interviewing two people from the Cloud Abuse team, Swati Kulshreshth and Emeka Okonkwo. I hope I didn't completely mispronounce your names. And they're going to be telling us about what is cloud abuse, why you should care, and basically how cloud abuse is here to protect you also.
Yeah, I think this was really kind of cool. It is a really interesting conversation and why you should care as a customer of GCP about why this group exists. It's not there to get in your way. It's there to really help you.
Yeah, actually it's also to protect people outside of Google Cloud Platform too, which is an interesting thing. Yeah.
After that, we have our question of the week, where we go back to Kubernetes, one of my favorite topics, where we look at easy ways to deploy like well-known applications.
Yeah, so it's basically like a mix of your two favorite topics, like deployment manager and Kubernetes. Is there such a thing?
Oh,
yeah. So very interesting. And before that, we're gonna go with the cool thing of the week. Cool things of the week, and we have like 4 today. 2 of them are really tiny. So the first one is about a dataset, new dataset available on Google Cloud, which is a public geo dataset. So basically a bunch of images from all around the world. And if you've listened to all our episodes, this might sound familiar. It is actually the same dataset that Descartes Labs, which we interviewed in episode 41, has been using for quite a while. There's a bunch of images. They're really cool, actually. I know in the blog post, which we will link from the show notes, there's a bunch of images that we even used in some of the show notes for episode 41, and some really nice pictures of Australia.
Oh, well, as long as it's Australia, that's what's important.
Yeah, it's a place called Brisbane. I don't know.
And Brisbane's pretty nice. I've been there.
No, I've never been there. I'd love to, though. Looks like there's nice beaches.
Yeah, there is. And speaking of open data sets, there's another open data set that I think is also really cool, the Open Images data set. So consists of like over or approximately 9 million URLs to images that have been annotated with the labels spanning about, 6,000 categories. So if you want to get sort of some images data that you want to put through machine learning and tag it very similarly to how like Google Photos or the Cloud Vision API works, you can do that. So you could actually do some really neat stuff with it. Yeah,
I think that basically if you have all of these pictures with all the annotations and then you want to start playing with TensorFlow, this could be a really nice place to basically, can you try to emulate the Cloud Vision API?
Yeah, I actually think it could be cool as well in that like you could dig into like specific categories of stuff. Like say you want to be able to work out, say, what metal maybe cutlery is made out of. So you grab everything that has cutlery and then kind of break it down from there. You could do some really interesting stuff as like a starting point for machine learning.
I'm actually seeing the picture of the cutlery and I have no idea what metal that is.
I don't know. That's why I saw the image too and I was like, cutlery.
That's a good point, yeah.
But like something like that could be really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like something I could try. And then there's 2 more cool things of the week, which are completely self-promotion. So I'm shameless.
Yeah. So Francesc, if you had a podcast in theory and you wanted to get that podcast to go onto YouTube, how would you do such a thing?
That's a very interesting question, Mark. So we actually did this. As we announced a couple of weeks ago, we actually have all of our podcast episodes available on YouTube. And this was done automatically because it is easier. Well, it's actually not easier, but I do not hate my life. So basically what this does is it's a Docker container that will download some files, MP3 files from an RSS feed and publish everything to YouTube, adding one image that you can choose. And the news is that it just has been open sourced. So you can go to github.com/campoy/podcast to YouTube and just check it out. And then I also open sourced something else last week, which is a Go web workshop. It's basically the basics on how to build web applications using Go on App Engine. So if you're curious about to learn how I normally do it, on the front end side of things, it's super light. So don't expect to learn anything about CSS3 or HTML5. It is actually pretty bad, but but we don't care because this is about the backend. So you will learn about how to use the data store and Memcache and how to send emails and stuff like that.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, why don't we have a chat with Swati and Emeka and talk to them about cloud abuse?
Cool. Let's do that. So I'm very happy to welcome to the podcast two members of the cloud abuse team. So we have Swati Kulshreshth. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi.
And Emeka Okonkwo. Hi.
Pleasure to meet you.
How are you both doing?
Good.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you guys.
Well done, Francesc. Those are two tricky names.
I know. There's this my specialty, but then I mess it up with completely English-sounding names. So, so why don't we start talking a little bit about who you are, what do you do at Google? Maybe start with you, Swati.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I'm part of the Cloud Trust and Safety team, and what our team does is basically protect the cloud from abuse originating from Google Cloud. I specifically look at the developer experience associated with that.
And I work as a senior strategist on the same team. And again, the mission is to protect folks from against abuse from cloud.
Okay, cool. So, all right, we said abuse a few times through that. What does cloud abuse actually mean? Emeka, why don't you go first?
Sure. So cloud abuse, as the way it's defined, is any kind of activity that ends up violating the cloud terms of services or acceptable user policy. So our team's goal or mission is to basically enforce the relevant sections of the cloud terms of services /AUP.
Could you give a couple of examples of what kind of terms of services do you normally handle?
Sure. So things such as denial of service attacks that emanate from the cloud platform, or intrusion attacks, or even malware or phishing, those kind of activities are the things that we are responsible for protecting or preventing.
And to add to that, there are things that would violate the terms of service, like you're going beyond your quota restrictions or doing things that you shouldn't be doing given the cloud services that you're using.
Cool. And so you're saying that basically what you're doing is not protecting Google Cloud Platform customers from external abuse, but actually stopping abuse coming from Google Cloud Platform.
That is exactly right. Our team is focused on looking at abuse that originated from the Google Cloud Platform. And that is the kind of activity that we specifically look for and try to stop.
Attacks that come to Google is handled by site reliability engineers. So that's a different team. So
yeah, we've talked with a couple of them. We should keep on talking with more of them. Yeah, they're always so cool to talk to.
Okay, so clearly the people who listen to our podcast, they're responsible people. They're wonderful people. We love them dearly.
They're listeners. So
they're listeners, so clearly they're great. They're not going to actively go out and try and do things that are malicious and nefarious or something like that. Why should they care about cloud abuse? Is there issues in terms of resources, or what sort of problems is this kind of solving for people who are customers of GCP?
So there are two types of abuse we see coming from Google Cloud. There's intentional abuse, and clearly, like you said, your listeners are not one of those. But then there is the unintentional abuse. You did not want to be conducting denial of service attempts or intrusion attempts, but your system has been hacked, or there's a software that you downloaded and that is doing it on your behalf. And those are the kinds of things that we are looking for, and those are the kind of things that you should be looking at too.
And to add on to that, it could be possible that, for example, if someone hacks your system, so again, that's a breach on your system. You really don't want to be responsible for that, or at least you want to find out as soon as possible if that happens. Or if someone is using your machine to perform a denial of service attack, that could cost a lot of money. On the cloud, and so a lot of computing resources that you wouldn't have to be responsible for paying for. So hopefully, if we catch that in time, that would be very awesome for you. And also, finally, if you have an external website that is hosted somewhere, we are trying to protect you from being hit by people who are on cloud. So makes it life better for everybody.
Cool. I'm curious. So you mentioned denial of service attacks. What other kind of use cases do you normally see? Is it people getting infected with some bots, or what kind of problem do you normally handle?
Yeah, so we see a lot of denial of service attacks. We also see a lot of brute forcing activities. So basically, someone's machine. Maybe it's hacked because, of course, none of our users are going to do it. So a compromised machine could be trying to probe vulnerabilities against external networks. So trying to maybe find out, like trying to log into those networks, or even like vulnerability scanning to like see what's easy to be like falling prey. One of the things we saw recently or some time back was when WordPress had like some vulnerabilities and they shared a security bulletin. We saw a lot of attacks from Google targeting like third parties WordPress sites.
Interesting.
Or even people hitting, the other cloud people, customers who had WordPress. So those kind of things are examples.
I think one of the things we see very frequently is that your firewalls have not been set up properly, and then somebody manages to get into your system and start doing either denial of service attacks or brute forcing or any of the other suspicious activities.
I guess that means, like if I'm running my service on Google Cloud Platform and someone's hacked me, then suddenly I don't have those resources on that machine available to me anymore if someone's trying to, I don't know, mine Bitcoins or whatever it is the cool kids are doing these days. Yeah. Suddenly my CPU...
Dogecoins.
Yeah, exactly. Like my CPU is suddenly at 100%, and so I can't serve traffic or do anything I should be doing on my app.
Right. Yeah. And even like you said, so it could be possible that you could have legitimate users who are using the platform properly, but because the resources are being used by these irresponsible people or by people who have been compromised, they don't have the ability to actually enjoy what they paid for. So that's also a bad experience for other customers who are not doing abuse.
So most of the things that we've discussed so far are basically people attacking or somehow compromising the account of someone that is well-intentioned. Yeah. Does it also happen that someone is well-intentioned, but somehow they are not aware of some limitations? What kind of limitations people sometimes forget?
I think the biggest one that we see in this category is people going outside of the quota available to them and using it multiple times. So associated with the free trial, there are specific quota limitations in terms of number of projects, in terms of how many emails you can send, how much network you can use, and that is the one that people often end up circumventing and then getting caught by one of our rules. We do try to give a lot of benefit of doubt. So unless you're really egregiously violating that, we'll probably not come after you.
Cool.
And also, for example, what we see as well, in addition to what Swati had mentioned, is that a lot of people may not necessarily take the precautions of securing their instances, or setting up the appropriate firewalls to only allow the traffic from the designated VMs or instances. So what happens is that someone may basically kind of hack into their systems and use that systems as a part of a bot to do something bad. So not taking the extra couple of minutes required to actually lock down your machine to make sure that you only get traffic to and fro from what you really want to has been a lot of concern.
You were talking a little bit as well just about like accidental stuff people do. You talked a little bit about projects. So there are any other sort of things that people often sort of go, oh, it'll be fine, or they don't even realize that was a terms of service thing, like that they go past that people should be aware of?
The most frequent ones is either quotas and is like the number of projects and email quotas. Yeah.
And also sometimes some people may use the platform as a hosting provider so that basically other people can run off of them as a part of the services they offer to their own customers. So if they don't properly monitor those customers or kind of check the traffic, they could also end up getting a violation about terms of services. So for example, if they open up that service to host uploaded images, some of them may be malware, which is now being served from the cloud customer to external people. So again, that's also a violation. So it may be not you specifically, but the people that you provide services to could end up costing you a violation.
So basically that makes sense. Anywhere you've got a system that has user generated content or anything like that, you need to be very careful about what content they're putting up there and what it's possible and able to do on your platform.
That's correct.
Cool. So let's imagine that at some point, for some reason, either because by mistake I didn't pay attention to some service or somehow I got hacked, I get an email, and the email is basically saying, "Hey, we detected some fraudulent activity in your account. What's next? What do I have to do?"
Mm-hmm. So I can take that one. Sure. When we see something suspicious, we will send out an email to you saying, we're seeing this suspicious activity. Please check it. Please get back to us. Send an appeal. And there'll be a 3-day warning period. The thing you need to keep in mind is that this email goes out to the project owners. So definitely monitor your project owner email. We hear a lot of developers coming back to us saying, hey, I wasn't monitoring it, so I didn't realize that there's something going on.
I've heard stories about that. Yeah.
I think that's a great takeaway. I just want to highlight that.
It's happened to us actually, where we got an email for our internal email, the Google Cloud Platform podcast project about, some certificate going away. And we're like, whoops.
We somehow knew about that.
Yeah. So it's okay. That's a very important point. Pay attention to the email.
Yep.
So the process going forward is you go to the developer console, it'll take you to the appeals page and you send an appeal. The good thing to do about the appeal is to actually give us some context around what you're doing, what your project is doing, and why do you think that suspicious activity might be happening. We definitely don't need the code of your program. We don't need a design diagram, but we do need some context to see why this was happening.
So how much information do you give about this? Like, will it be something like, oh, you're going over the code on this, or you are using too much CPU or something like that? Or it's just like, hey, you're like, what kind of information do I get?
So we definitely provide information on what kind of suspicious activity we are seeing. So we will tell you this is the kind of, so we are seeing denial of service attacks, or we are seeing you circumventing quota. We will give you the project ID, the project name, and the time on which that happened. If you need more information, you can definitely write back to us, and sometimes we can help you out. Sometimes you need to go back and look at your own traffic logs and see what was happening around that time.
So it sounds like, okay, I get the email, which I'm monitoring because I look at my emails, and you'll give me some information. So it really sounds like the first step is actually for me to go and have a look at my project and see if I can work out what's going wrong, and maybe I need to lock something down better or just stop doing something that I probably shouldn't have been doing in the first place.
That's right.
And also we surface the same notifications in the developer console. So you can actually log into your developer console and see the same information. So at least you will see a notification next to your project with some icon or something which you can mouse over, and it gives you more information about what, high level, hey, we saw something wrong. Can you please take a look? It needs your attention. So that's another way that you also get the information about something wrong.
To add to what Emeka just said, if you're on the developer console, go look at the dashboard for your projects, and you will definitely see if there's a issue, you will see that surfaced on the dashboard.
Now, I'm curious, if I go looking, maybe I'm not that technical, or for whatever reason, I can't work out what the issue is. Can I come to you and say, hey, look, I'm stuck. Can you give me some extra information? Is that a thing you all do?
Yes, you can come and ask us for more information. We have certain things that we can share or not share. So as to the extent that we can, we will provide as much information as we can to help you. But if you're not really sure what's going on with your VM, for example, normally we would recommend that you kind of do a reinstall just to make sure that you wipe out any kind of person who may have hacked into your machine.
Provision your machines.
Yep.
With a script.
That makes sense. So could you share a little bit out of your experience? You've been working on this for quite a while. What is some cool anecdotes of people that have gone through the abuse process?
I think the most common one is, I'm not doing anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And then when we talk to them, and they'll go back, look at the traffic logs, and they'll say, oh yeah, I see this activity. It must have happened because I newly installed this software, or this application must be doing it. There are times when people have installed apps and not even realize that those apps are doing things on their behalf, which is getting them to violate the terms of condition. And when you get that email saying you're violating terms of service, or something is wrong, suspicious is happening, go check it. You may not be doing it. Someone else might be doing it from your system.
Yeah.
So even to add on to what she said, sometimes we've let people know, hey, we found that or we detected XYZ is happening on your platform, and then they've come back to us saying, oh no, nothing is going on wrong, everything is fine. And then later on we get a report from a third party also saying, hey, we got abusive traffic from this person. And so when we now send it to them, they're like, oh my goodness, so something is wrong, what's going on? So usually when we do say something is wrong, at least try to take a look, because more likely than not there is something going on. And, that's the kind of...
And if you're not able to find it, just reply saying, hey, I'm not able to find it. Give me a hand.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You made an interesting point there very quickly. You work with third parties as well who also report, basically the traffic or something bad is happening at particular places?
Yes, that's correct. So we also receive reports from third parties who are reporting attacks that they receive coming from the Google Cloud platform. So it's part of our duties, in addition to like protecting cloud customers, is to also take that into consideration. And basically, if you verify the report, because not everybody who tells you is, maybe they have like some spiteful stuff, but you have to verify that it actually is a legitimate report. And if it's so, we also act on those as well.
Cool. So what about when people are hosting content that is fraudulent? So it's not really about what you are doing, but about what you're serving. So for instance, let's imagine like some private movie or stuff like that.
Yeah, well, we all love movies.
Yeah, we do.
So if someone is found to be hosting like some sort of like movie that is copyright protected or, you know, falls under the DMCA Act, what we do when we receive such reports is that we actually like work with our legal team and send those notifications to them, because that is not necessarily like abuse, but it might be something that falls under the legal category. So in basically our role in that is just mostly like forward those and to the legal team so that they can move it from there.
But that would be a violation of the terms of service.
It would be a violation of the terms of services, yes.
Interesting. And at some point you mentioned that very often it's about vulnerabilities, and sometimes it's applications that are malicious, really. But what about when there is something that all of a sudden everybody knows about and all the internet is unsafe again, like Heartbleed, for instance?
Yeah. So we in those kind of situations, when this has happened, we work a lot closely with the cloud security team to come up with like some sort of solutions that can help to protect our customers and kind of like use that or deploy that to help to protect them. So we've had some situations like the Heartbleed one, but the one that comes to mind is one called Rohammer, which was like a big security issue. And we worked with the cloud security team to help us to come up with appropriate mitigation steps that can be applied on the cloud platform.
Can you explain a little bit what Rohammer is? I've never heard about it.
I don't know the details. I wasn't.
We'll put a link in the show notes. We'll do some research.
Yeah, we'll find it. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's cool. All right. Well, I think we should talk about .graph. I think.
Yeah.
It's the elephant in the room. We should probably talk about it. If anyone hasn't heard about it, it was a fun moment.
Yeah, very interesting story. Basically, it went crazy on Hacker News. Someone said, "Oh yeah, Google Cloud basically shut down my company completely." And I think it's interesting because it was shut down by Cloud Abuse, your team.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. What happened? Could you tell us a little bit about the internals? What did actually happen in there?
Yeah. So what had happened was that we had actually received like some third-party reports about attacks coming from the user's machine. And after we independently verified the situation, we sent the user a notification, which also comes with a grace period. And so the user did receive the notification, but it seems that there was some problems on the developer console, which prevented the user from being able to submit a successful appeal within the time period that he had. And so, unfortunately, after the time period had expired, he actually had his project suspended, and so that's when he wrote the email.
Now, it sounds like there was some reach out from the Google Cloud team, and the Cloud Abuse team worked with him. So we ended up getting the project reinstated.
That's correct.
Yes.
And we've been working, I believe, with him as well to add some improvements and basically improve things that went wrong before. Can you talk a little about those as well?
Yeah, so that issue actually highlighted a few things that had been happening or that were not great for as far as the developer experience was concerned. And when this issue highlighted those, we've been working hard to fix them. We've made a few changes to the way we inform developers on the email as well as the developer console so that they have more information to take corrective steps. We worked really hard. Our team worked really hard to fix those issues, and those were fixed within a week of this issue happening.
Right. So basically, it was the detection was correct, the issue was correct, but we didn't have a good enough experience from a developer's standpoint for them to like communicate and reach out to us. That doesn't always happen. It was like a unique set of circumstances that happened for him, because we do get people who are able to like successfully appeal, but he kind of like he you know, when something goes wrong, everything goes wrong kind of something situation. So that's unfortunately what happened in his situation. I'm
super happy to say that he has said, where are we? I'm very pleased with the service overall and will likely remain a customer for a long time.
Yes.
So I'm very happy to hear that the resolutions made a deep and meaningful impact. So super happy about that. Cool. Well, in case we missed anything, I need to ask our standard question is there anything else you want to talk about or highlight, or maybe new things or anything we might have missed?
We have a couple of like help center articles that basically give you some explanation about like some of the policy violations and also like steps of how you can secure your instance. So as we see a lot of times people are compromised. So if you can take a look at those, that will really help you out to kind of like prevention is better than cure, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
And our emails will direct you to those articles. So if it is about just figuring out how to get through this process, we have a help center article on that. We have help center articles on specific abuse types that we will be sending you emails about. We are also trying to proactively reach out to you because one of the things that we've been talking about, a common theme is the instance has been compromised. So we're trying to reach out to developers whose instances we see could be at a high risk of being compromised before the compromise happens.
Cool.
So keep watching out for those emails.
Yeah, we'll have the links to those articles directly from the show notes here. So I could say that then one of the biggest pieces of advice is pay attention to your emails.
Yes.
I could say.
or to the dashboard and the cloud.
To the dashboard. Yeah. What could be the second biggest piece of advice for someone that wants to make sure that is not going to get impacted by fraud?
I'll say make sure your instances are secure. Check your firewalls. A lot of times, everything is open to everybody. So it may be easier to get started faster, which is awesome. But take the extra time to actually like lock things down.
I think to add to that, the third one is like a lot of times the software you've installed on your instance, just make sure all the security patches are in place and keep on top of that.
So yeah, basically just make sure no one else gets to use your resources.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about abuse today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for reminding us.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today, Swati and Emeka. Super interesting discussion, and I definitely learned a lot about the abuse process and why it exists and why I think it's really so important.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing was like, abuse is here only because we need to protect you too, which is really interesting, and how most of the time when abuse is dealing with customers it is because they might have been compromised. So take care, like make sure that your network is correctly configured and it's safely, like you have all your networking firewall rules and all that stuff set correctly. Which, by the way, that's what we will be talking about next episode. So maybe that's what we should do. Listen to the next episode next week. But I think now it's time to go talk about the question of the week. And the question of the week is something that I really like because I'm a pretty lazy person. And sometimes I see very often examples of, this is how you run Jenkins on Kubernetes, or this is how you run, I don't know, Drupal or WordPress on Kubernetes, whatever. And it really makes me feel like, well, on Google Cloud Platform, we have this really cool thing, which is the deployment manager that you can easily click on a button and then you get a deployment. Boom, done, easy. Is there such a thing for Kubernetes?
Yeah, so this is really cool. This is if anyone's tracked along with what was Deployment Manager and then Helm and then backwards and forwards, everything all got sort of consolidated recently, which is really cool. And everything's now in Helm for Kubernetes. So Helm is this thing that lets you deploy common things like applications to Kubernetes. So some things that are supported right now in the stable are like Drupal, Jenkins, WordPress, stuff like that. So if you've used apt-get or you've used Yum or, other package managers such as maybe an NPM or like a Gem or something like that to start it.
Or Yarn.
Or I've never used Yarn.
It just wasn't announced today. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That
cool.
is why.
Yeah. So, then you can use that to deploy stuff to Kubernetes. There's a command line client. What it does is it says it has the Helm is the command line client and charts are what the packages are called within Helm. And then you can search through it, you can initialize, you can go Helm install, and that builds stuff up and puts it into Kubernetes for you, which is super cool. There's currently 2 repositories. There's the stable repository, and then there's the incubating repository, which has some stuff that's almost there, but not quite there yet, which includes things like etcd and Consul and MongoDB and a few other things as well. But I think this is super cool and very exciting for people who just want to get stuff up and running on Kubernetes, especially if it's common stuff that everyone's already doing.
Yeah, I think that it is a very nice way, especially also not only if you are the one consuming those packages, But if you have a cool application and you want to distribute it in an easy way that anyone can go like, just run this command and get started trying it.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. All right. Well, Francesc, are you up to anything interesting in the next few weeks? Where are you off to?
So I'm going to be re-recording some of the episodes of Just for Fun because we've been having some technical issues, but I should be releasing some of those very soon. And other than that, I will go next month. I will be in Brazil for GopherCon Brazil. Very excited about that. My talk starts to take shape, which is nice. We're like 3 weeks away, so it is good. And then also at GCP Next Brazil, which, by the way, if you're interested in, we're going to be running our GCP Next conference, so Google Cloud Platform Next. You're going to be learning about what we're working on and what are the new things. And this time it's going to be in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. So November 10th in Sao Paulo, if you're somewhere around, we will have a link to that so you can register. It's going to be lots of fun. There's going to be a lot of people from my team and all the teams from Google Cloud Platform there. So come say hi.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. Well, when this comes out next week after that, I will be back in Atlanta again for a web conference called Connect Tech. And then the week after that, I will be in Atlantic City for another game development conference, GamerCon.
Nice. Atlanta again. You really like to go to the same city 2 or 3 times in a row.
I try and do that.
Yeah, you can also stay there.
I could. You're right. I think I like going there and coming back. I think it's just something I like to do.
I'll miss you too much otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Francesc. Well, thank you so much for joining me for yet another week.
Thank you, and talk to you and you all next week.
See you next week.